The morning sun already beat down on the mirrored windows of the imposing 30-story building on Fifth Avenue. It was the start of another day at Vasconcelos Developments, one of New York City's largest construction companies, founded by the visionary entrepreneur Anthony Vasconcelos nearly 4 decades ago. On the 29th floor, the luxurious conference room was in absolute silence, save for the deep authoritative voice of Rafael Mendoza, the company's current CEO. "What are you doing here? Can't you see we're in a meeting with investors?" Rafael's voice echoed through the room as he pointed at Mrs. Hilda, a 58-year-old cleaning lady who had just entered to collect coffee cups. The 6 executives and 3 Japanese investors present averted their gazes, embarrassed. "Pardon me, sir, I just came to collect," Mrs. Hilda tried to explain, holding her cleaning cart. "Collect later. Or do I need to explain how your job works?" Rafael slammed his hand on the table. "Get out of here now!" Mrs. Hilda lowered her head and quickly left the room, closing the door carefully. What Rafael didn't know was that this public humiliation was exactly what Beatriz Vasconcelos, the true owner of the company and the founder's daughter, had been waiting for, hidden under the guise of the cleaning lady. And that moment marked the climax of a meticulously orchestrated plan over the last 72 hours. 3 days earlier, Beatrice had discreetly returned from London, where she had spent the last 2 years honing her knowledge in business management and sustainability in civil construction. During her absence, she had entrusted the company's management to Rafael Mendoza, an executive with an impeccable resume who worked at a multinational and had been recommended by a friend of her father. Beatrice, a 35-year-old woman, as determined and pragmatic as her father, had never been one to make a fuss about her position. Tall, with curly hair and intense green eyes inherited from her mother, she preferred discretion and efficiency over the typical stardom of major executives. Few employees knew her face, as she had always avoided media and social media exposure. "I can't believe what I'm reading," Beatrice murmured to herself in her Upper East Side apartment, as she analyzed the reports she had received via encrypted email. These were documents sent by Carla Rivers, Human Resources Manager, and one of the few people the Vasconcelos family fully trusted. The emails contained detailed employee accounts, worrying financial data, and most alarmingly, a 75% increase in staff turnover in the last 8 months. Vasconcelos Developments had always prided itself on talent retention. With some employees celebrating over 20 years with the company, Beatrice picked up her phone and dialed Carla. "Is it as bad as it looks in the reports?" she asked directly without preamble. "It's worse," Carla replied, her voice tired. "The atmosphere is one of terror. People are literally getting sick. 3 managers have requested leave for mental health issues in the last 2 months. And when questioned about any problems, Rafael always says he's restructuring the inherited team and that the difficulties are the fault of the team not adapting to modern times." Beatrice was silent for a few seconds. "I need to see this up close, but if I show up as the owner, everyone will change their behavior and I'll never know the truth. What do you have in mind?" "Remember that time my father disguised himself as a security guard to find out who was siphoning off materials from the Westfield Mall construction site?" Carla gave a brief laugh. "How could I forget? The guy almost had a heart attack when he found out the security guard who caught him red-handed was Anthony Vasconcelos himself." "Exactly." Beatrice took a deep breath. "I'll need your help for something similar." The next morning, Beatrice was unrecognizable. A gray wig, thick-rimmed glasses, makeup simulating deeper wrinkles, and a slightly stooped posture transformed the young executive into the new employee of the cleaning team, Mrs. Hilda, a 58-year-old widow who needed to supplement her pension. Carla personally introduced her to the cleaning supervisor, Mrs. Martha, a trustworthy woman who believed she was helping a friend of Carla's who was going through financial difficulties. The story was that Hilda would work for a few weeks to help with her grandson's treatment expenses. "We start on the upper floors, where the executive offices are," Mrs. Martha explained, handing her the blue uniform and temporary access badge. "The executives are more demanding, so make sure you do a thorough job there, okay?" Beatrice nodded, feeling the weight of that uniform and what it represented. Her father, Anthony Vasconcelos, had started as a bricklayer's assistant before founding the company. He always made a point of greeting every cleaning and maintenance employee by name and repeated like a mantra to his daughter, "Those who truly build are the hands no one sees." Equipped with her cleaning cart, Beatrice went up to the executive floor. She was nervous but determined. In the hallway, she crossed paths with Raphael, who was accompanied by 2 assistants. Instinctively, she smiled and greeted him. "Good morning, sir." Raphael stopped and stared at her with disdain. "Since when do cleaning ladies greet me?" "Mind your business and don't interrupt me." The 2 assistants looked at the floor, visibly uncomfortable, as Raphael continued on his way without looking back. Beatrice stood still, absorbing the impact of those words. It wasn't just rudeness. It was a display of contempt for human dignity that went against everything her family had always stood for. Throughout that first day, as she cleaned offices and bathrooms, Beatrice witnessed scenes that would make her father turn in his grave. In one meeting room, she saw Raphael publicly humiliating Maurice Foster, the sales manager, during a presentation. "This is complete garbage," Raphael shouted, throwing the document folder on the floor. "My 12-year-old nephew could do better. Redo everything by tomorrow or find another job." Maurice, a man in his 40s with over 10 years at the company, merely picked up the scattered papers, his hands trembling and his face red with shame. On another occasion, still that same day, Beatrice witnessed Raphael forcing his assistant, a young woman named Jessica, to pick up papers he had intentionally dropped, while commenting to another director, "They need to learn humility. They're too used to Anthony's paternalism." At the end of the day, Beatrice met Carla at a discreet cafe 3 blocks from the building. "How was it?" Carla asked, concerned by Beatrice's serious expression. "Devastating," she replied, carefully removing her wig. "My father built a company based on respect and valuing people. In less than 2 years, this man has turned everything into a toxic environment. It's cruel, Carla, cruel and unacceptable." "And what do you intend to do? Will you reveal your identity and fire him?" Beatrice took a sip of her coffee, thoughtful. "Not yet. I need to understand the extent of the problem. I want to see how he acts when he's not in front of the directors. And most importantly, I need concrete evidence. Raphael has 2 directors in his pocket, whom he himself brought in. I need something irrefutable before I act. So, I'll continue to be Mrs. Hilda for a few more days, and you'll help me get access to all departments of the company." Carla nodded, worried. "Be careful. He's dangerous, not in a criminal sense, but he's manipulative and vindictive. I've seen how he retaliates against those who cross him." "Don't worry," Beatrice replied, putting her wig back on. "I've learned a lot in these 2 years away. And one thing I've learned is that sometimes we need to become invisible to truly see what's in front of us." As they left the cafe, neither noticed the young man at the next table, who was observing them intently. It was Leo Miller, an intern in the IT department of Vasconcelos Developments, who had recognized Carla's voice and was now intrigued by the strange conversation he had just witnessed. By the second week of her disguise, Beatrice knew every corner of the company she had inherited. She woke up at 4:30 a.m., transformed herself into Mrs. Hilda, and arrived at the company an hour before official working hours began. This gave her time to access areas normally busy during the day. That Tuesday, while cleaning the commercial department's meeting room, Beatrice overheard raised voices in the hallway. Discreetly, she positioned herself near the half-open door. "We lost the Northwood Hotel Group contract, Paul. It's the second big client in less than a month." The voice belonged to Rebecca Chambers, the commercial director who had worked for the company since her father's time. "What did you expect? Raphael ordered us to double the prices in the middle of negotiations and then treated the owner of the chain as if he was doing them a favor by building their hotels." Paul Turner, sales coordinator, looked exhausted. "And don't forget the meeting with the Dawn Ridge Developments people." Raphael was an hour late, spent half the time on his phone and interrupted the client twice. 15 years building a reputation for excellence and partnership. Thrown away in a matter of months. Rebecca sighed. "If Mr. Anthony were alive, or if his daughter really cared about what happens here," Paul added. "I heard she's in Europe, living it up with the money her father left while the company sinks." Beatrice felt a pang in her chest, not just because of the company's situation, but because she knew the employees blamed her for what was happening. She couldn't fault them. Indeed, she had trusted Raphael too much and had been away for too long. Days later, while cleaning the women's restroom on the 27th floor, Beatrice found Deborah Adams, the financial manager, crying in one of the stalls. The door was ajar, and Beatrice could see the woman talking on the phone between sobs. "I can't just quit, Monica," she was saying. "I'm a single mother, you know that. Clara's college starts next semester, and Matthew's orthodontic treatment. How will I pay?" There was a pause as the person on the other end responded. "Yes, I'm looking for another job, but it's not easy to get a salary like this." "No, I can't report the bullying. Raphael has the board in his hand. It would be my word against his." Deborah hung up the phone and exited the stall. Surprised to see Mrs. Hilda, she quickly wiped away her tears. "Sorry, I didn't know anyone was here," she said, trying to compose herself. "No need to apologize. My dear," Beatrice maintained her older woman persona. "Sometimes we just need to cry." Deborah gave a sad smile. "It's the first time in 2 weeks someone has spoken to me kindly in this building." She adjusted her blazer and looked in the mirror, touching up her makeup. "I have a meeting with the CEO in 10 minutes. If my eyes are red, he'll say women are too emotionally unstable for leadership positions. He said it once before." "Do you have children?" Beatrice asked, trying to establish a connection. Deborah's face lit up momentarily. "2. Clara 16 and Matthew 12. They're my life." She showed a picture of her children on her phone screen. "They're beautiful." Beatrice smiled. "My late husband always said children are the greatest wealth." "Your husband was a wise man." Deborah took a deep breath and adopted a more formal expression. "I have to go." "Thanks for listening. Sometimes that's all we need, isn't it? Someone to listen." After Deborah left, Beatrice remained thoughtful. It wasn't just the company that was suffering. It was real people with families and dreams, being crushed by a toxic environment and by a man who only thought of numbers and power. The turning point occurred 2 days later. Beatrice was cleaning the hallway when she saw Raphael shouting at Louis Anderson, the company's oldest and most respected project manager. Louis had been with Vasconcelos since its founding, having started as an intern under Anthony Vasconcelos himself. "You incompetent!" Raphael roared right in the hallway. "The Athena Tower project is delayed because of you. You're dead weight in this company, a dinosaur who hasn't adapted to modern times." Louis, a 60-year-old man with grey hair and always dignified posture, kept his eyes down, enduring the public humiliation. Employees quickly passed by, avoiding eye contact, but everyone heard. Minutes later, Beatrice found Louis in the men's restroom, which he had supposedly entered to clean. The man was hunched over the sink, sobbing. She hesitated but decided to approach. "Sir, is everything all right?" Louis looked up, surprised and embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I thought no one was here." "No need to apologize. I can come back later." "No, don't worry. I'm leaving now." But his legs seemed to falter and he leaned on the sink. 35 years. 35 years in this company. Mr. Anthony treated me like a son. Beatrice felt a lump in her throat. "You knew the old owner?" "Knew him?" Louis gave a bitter laugh. "He was my mentor. Taught me everything I know. When my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he was the one who ensured we had the best health plan possible." He wiped away tears. "And now this man humiliates me as if I'm nothing. I'm so sorry, sir. You know what's worse? I can't just leave. I have 2 children who depend on my salary, and my wife needs constant care. I'm trapped." Louis straightened his shoulders, trying to regain his dignity. "Sorry to vent to you. I don't even know your name." "Hilda," she replied. "And you don't need to apologize." Louis extended his hand to shake hers, a rare gesture of respect from an executive to a cleaning employee. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Hilda. I'm Louis Anderson." "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Lewis." Beatrice squeezed his hand, feeling a knot in her throat. "And don't worry. I'm sure things will change. God hear you, Mrs. Hilda, God hear you." That night, Beatrice couldn't sleep. The image of Louis, a man her father deeply respected, reduced to tears in a restroom, wouldn't leave her mind. She was determined to act, but she needed concrete proof of Raphael's mismanagement to confront him before the board. Instinct would not be enough. The opportunity arose on Friday of that same week. Raphael had scheduled an off-site meeting with potential investors, and Carla discreetly informed Beatrice that his office would be empty all afternoon. "It's risky," Carla warned when they met briefly in the break room. "If they catch you going through his documents—" "They won't catch me," Beatrice replied firmly. "I'm just the cleaning lady, remember? Invisible to people like Raphael." At 2:30 p.m., Beatrice entered Raphael's office with her cleaning cart and locked the door from the inside. Quickly, she began to examine the folders on the desk and inside the unlocked drawers. In the third drawer, she found a red folder marked Confidential. Inside, there were detailed financial reports that revealed an alarming reality: a 23% drop in revenue in the last 6 months, the loss of 3 key clients representing almost 30% of the portfolio, operational costs inflated by 40% without clear justification. But what truly shocked her were Raphael's personal expenses being illegally paid with company funds: dinners at luxury restaurants, first-class travel for conferences that never happened, and even an imported car registered as an operational vehicle. Beatrice photographed each page with her cell phone hidden in her uniform pocket. As she put the folder back, she heard voices approaching in the hallway. She quickly closed the drawer and returned to pretending to clean the room when the door opened. Raphael entered, accompanied by a man Beatrice recognized as Carlos Mendez, one of the directors he himself had brought into the company. "I didn't tell you to clean my office now," Raphael said, irritated. "Get out." "I'm sorry, sir," Beatrice replied, lowering her head. "I was just doing my job." "Your job is to do what you're told when you're told," he retorted. "Now get out." As she left with her cart, Beatrice heard Carlos comment, "These people have no sense of hierarchy. In my multinational days—" The door closed, cutting off the rest of the conversation. Beatrice took a deep breath, feeling a mix of anger and determination. Now she had the proof she needed, but she also knew she needed something more. She wanted Raphael to expose himself publicly, in front of witnesses who could not be bought or intimidated. In the elevator, on her way to the ground floor, Beatrice met Leo, the IT intern who had been observing her for days. He smiled at her, a smile that seemed to hide something. "Good afternoon." "Mrs. Hilda," he said, with a peculiar intonation. "Good afternoon, son," she replied. "Suspicious. It's a beautiful day outside. As beautiful as in London, I'd say." Beatrice felt a chill run down her spine. How did this young man know? Who was he really? And what did he intend to do with that information? The elevator reached the ground floor and Leo exited first, turning to her before walking away. "Have a good weekend, Mrs. Beatrice. Or should I say, Mrs. Vasconcelos." Beatrice stood paralyzed as the elevator doors closed again. Her disguise had been discovered, and now her entire plan was at risk. She needed to find this young man and discover what he knew and what he intended to do. But before she could act, her cell phone vibrated with a message from Carla. "General meeting called by Raphael for Monday, 8 a.m. All employees, no exceptions, urgent." Beatrice's heart raced. What was Raphael planning? And how would this affect her own exposure plan? One thing was certain: the situation was about to reach a point of no return. On Monday morning, the Vasconcelos Developments Auditorium was packed. Over 250 employees gathered, murmuring theories about the reason for the emergency meeting. The atmosphere was one of apprehension. Such convocations rarely brought good news, especially under Rafael Mendoza's management. Beatrice, still as Mrs. Hilda, positioned herself discreetly at the back of the auditorium. Throughout the weekend, she had tried to find Leo, the intern who had discovered her identity, but the young man seemed to have disappeared. He wasn't answering calls or messages. This made her even more nervous. At 8:05 a.m., Raphael entered the auditorium accompanied by 3 directors, Edward Campbell and Alexander Pearson, both brought in by him, and Rebecca Chambers, the only director remaining from the previous management. The contrast between them was visible, while the men displayed stern expressions. Rebecca seemed genuinely distressed. Raphael went up to the stage, adjusted the microphone, and looked at the audience with a grave expression. "Good morning, everyone. If we are here today on a Monday at 8 a.m., it is because the situation is critical." His voice echoed through the silent auditorium. The results of the last quarter were disastrous. Disastrous because you failed to adapt to the new market reality. An indignant murmur ran through the auditorium. Raphael raised his hand, demanding silence. I am not here to hear complaints. I am here to present measures that need to be taken immediately to save this company from collapse. He clicked the remote, and a graph appeared on the screen behind him. Arta. Revenue fell 25% in the last quarter. What Raphael didn't mention, and Beatrice knew from the documents she had photographed, was that the decline began precisely when he took over and alienated long-standing clients with his arrogant demeanor. To face this crisis, I am announcing the following measures effective today. First, immediate cancellation of the work-from-home policy for all employees, without exception. Another wave of murmurs. Vasconcelos had been one of the first major companies to implement hybrid work, even in Anthony Vasconcelos' time, who believed in work-life balance. Second, suspension of the flexible hours policy. Everyone must work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a 1-hour lunch break. Third, Raphael paused dramatically, indefinite suspension of all bonuses and profit sharing until the company returns to growth. A young engineer stood up in the third row. Beatrice recognized her. It was Amy Gallagher, Sustainability Coordinator, one of the company's most recent and promising hires. Excuse me, Mr. Mendoza, Amy said with a firm voice. Most departments met their individual targets. The problem was in macro management and the loss of strategic clients. Furthermore, bonuses are contractual rights. They cannot simply be suspended. Raphael stared at Amy with an icy gaze. Miss Gallagher, isn't it? I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. Or perhaps you need to be reminded that you are still on probation. I am merely stating facts, sir, Amy replied without backing down. The Sustainability Department's numbers exceed the established targets for the quarter by 15%, even with the budget reduction imposed on us. Raphael smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Impressive. Perhaps then you can explain why the Vertical Gardens project is 3 weeks late. Because you cut 40% of our team last month and removed the project from the priority list, Amy replied, starting to turn red. It's all documented in the reports I sent. Reports that demonstrate your incompetence in adapting to budgetary constraints. Raphael turned to the auditorium. This is the kind of insubordination we can no longer tolerate. Employees who don't understand hierarchy or who think they know more than the board. He turned back to Amy. I suggest you return to your seat and reflect on whether you truly wish to continue with this company. Amy hesitated for a moment, then slowly sat down. Her nearby colleagues patted her back in solidarity, but no one else dared to speak. Continuing, Raphael proceeded, the fourth measure is a complete re-evaluation of the company's salary structure. We need to align with the market, which, as everyone knows, is contracting. That was a euphemism for salary cuts, and everyone in the auditorium knew it. Beatrice saw pale faces, expressions of despair. Many of those people had families to support, mortgages to pay, dreams built on years of dedicated work. Finally, Raphael concluded, we will initiate a right-sizing process to adjust our workforce to the new reality. He didn't even have the courage to say layoffs directly, Beatrice thought. He used an English term to mask the human impact of the measure. Her father would be ashamed. It was then that something unexpected happened. Louis Anderson, the project manager Beatrice had found crying in the restroom, slowly stood up. Everyone turned to look at him. Louis was a respected figure, a living relic of Anthony Vasconcelos' time. Mr. Mendoza, he began, his voice, despite his age, resonating strongly through the auditorium, what you are proposing is not only unfair, it is illegal. Raphael seemed momentarily surprised by the interruption. Pardon me? Unilateral salary cuts are illegal under labor law. Suspension of contractual benefits also. And what you call a drop in revenue is, in fact, the direct result of incompetent management that alienated long-standing clients and demotivated employees. A deathly silence fell over the auditorium. No one expected Louis, always so reserved and diplomatic, to make such a direct confrontation. Raphael quickly recovered from the initial shock. Mr. Anderson, I advise you to sit down and not to defame the management of this company. But Louis remained standing. I am not defaming anyone. I am stating facts. In less than 2 years, you have managed to destroy what Anthony Vasconcelos took 4 decades to build. A company that was a benchmark for quality, sustainability, and above all, respect for people. Louis turned to face his colleagues. I have worked for this company for 35 years. I saw Anthony Vasconcelos transform it from a small industrial warehouse builder into one of the largest developers in the country. And do you know how he did that? By treating every employee, from the laborer to the engineer, with dignity, by believing that a company is not made of buildings or profits, but of people. Raphael interrupted, visibly irritated. Very moving, Mr. Anderson, but sentimentality doesn't pay bills. This company is no longer that small family construction company of the last century. Exactly, Louis retorted. It should be bigger not just in size, but in values. You talk about 25% drops in revenue as if it were a market inevitability, when everyone here knows it started with your management. Clients who had been with us for decades left because you treated them as numbers, not as partners. Louis took a small object from his pocket, his badge, and threw it on the floor. The sound of plastic against the floor echoed in the absolute silence. You don't need to fire me, Mr. Mendoza. I resign. But first, I want everyone here to know that I will contact the press, the unions, and most importantly, I will contact the true owner of this company. Beatriz Vasconcelos needs to know what is happening to her father's legacy. With these words, Louis walked with dignity down the central aisle of the auditorium towards the exit. No one dared to stop him. As he passed Beatrice, their eyes met for a brief moment and she felt a lump in her throat. If he only knew he was speaking to the very person he had mentioned. Raphael tried to regain control of the situation. Well, it seems Mr. Anderson has made his choice. Does anyone else wish to follow his example? The tone was a veiled threat. No one spoke up. The fear was palpable in the air. Excellent. The new policies will be detailed in a memo that HR will send out later today. You are all dismissed. As people stood up and began to leave the auditorium in silence, Beatrice remained motionless, absorbing what she had just witnessed. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Raphael had completely exposed himself, showing his true colors to the entire company. As Raphael left the auditorium, he ran into Mrs. Hilda in the hallway. "What are you doing here?" he asked sharply. "You should be cleaning the bathrooms on the 25th floor." "Sorry, sir," Beatrice replied, head bowed. "Mrs. Martha said everyone should attend the meeting." "And since when does everyone include the cleaning crew?" Raphael gave a dry laugh. "You wouldn't even understand what was discussed in there. You're just a cleaning lady." He approached intimidatingly. "What you heard in there stays in there, understood? If you know what's good for you, you won't be commenting on anything to anyone. Cleaning ladies are replaceable. Very replaceable." After Raphael walked away, Beatrice bent down and picked up the badge Louis had thrown on the floor. It was a powerful symbol, the dignity of a man who chose to give up his livelihood rather than condone injustice. That small plastic object would be her inspiration for what she needed to do next. Beatrice sent a message to Carla. "We need to talk, urgent. I want an emergency board meeting for tomorrow." The response came almost instantly. "Impossible. Raphael has called a board meeting for tomorrow at 10 a.m. He's going to propose a 30% workforce reduction." Beatrice felt her blood boil. "Then it will be at that meeting. Prepare yourself. Tomorrow Mrs. Hilda retires and Beatriz Vasconcelos officially returns." As she put away her phone, she didn't notice the figure observing her from the end of the hallway. Leo, the IT intern who had discovered her identity. He watched her with an enigmatic expression, as if making an important decision. Beatrice headed to the women's restroom, which was empty at the moment, and locked herself in a stall. She needed a moment to process everything and plan her next steps. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't notice the restroom door opening and footsteps approaching. "Mrs. Hilda?" a female voice called. Or should I say, Beatriz Vasconcelos. Beatrice's heart nearly stopped. She slowly opened the stall door and found herself face to face with Amy Gallagher, the engineer who had confronted Raphael at the meeting. How do you know?" Amy smiled. "Leo told me. He's my boyfriend." Beatrice's stomach dropped. Her secret was spreading. But why, and what did Amy want? "What do you two intend to do with this information?" Beatrice asked, trying to remain calm. Amy tilted her head, confused. I don't understand. We came to offer help. Help? Yes. Leo discovered your identity days ago when he was analyzing system access logs. Your Hilda Silva login was created directly by Carla, which is unusual for outsourced employees. Then he investigated a bit more and noticed the coincidence of dates between your arrival as a cleaning lady and Beatrice Vasconcelos's return to the country. Beatrice didn't know whether to feel relief or more concern. And why didn't you say anything before? Thames tu nuam, we wanted to be sure. And most importantly, we wanted to know what your objective was. Amy hesitated. This place, it was special. Your father created a company where people felt valued. Every day, Raphael destroys a little more of that legacy. Amy's eyes welled up. When Leo confirmed it was you, we decided to wait and see what you would do. If you were truly concerned or just coldly observing to decide whether to sell the company. I would never sell Vasconcelos, Beatrice replied, feeling offended. It's my father's legacy. The realization of his dream. Now we know that, Amy smiled. And we are ready to help in any way we can. Beatrice considered the offer for a moment. Leo, with his IT knowledge, could be useful. And Amy had shown courage in publicly confronting Raphael. The board meeting tomorrow, she finally said. Raphael will try to approve mass layoffs. I need to stop him, but 2 of the 5 board members are loyal to him. I need something so forceful that even they can't ignore it. Amy nodded. Leo can help with that. He has access to all the company's digital records. Tell him to meet me at my apartment at 8 p.m. And Amy, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow could be the hardest day of your business life. Raphael won't back down easily. He has a lot to lose. As Amy left, Beatrice thought about what awaited her. The confrontation would be public, before the board and possibly the entire company. It was risky but necessary. Her father's legacy and the future of hundreds of families who depended on Vasconcelos was at stake. That night, as she prepared her strategy with Leo and Carla, Beatrice had no idea that, even before dawn, she would face a crisis that would put her entire plan at risk. 4 a.m. Beatrice's apartment doorbell rang insistently, pulling her from a light, restless sleep. Through the intercom, she recognized Carla's anxious voice. I need to talk to you now. It's urgent. Minutes later, Carla entered the apartment. She was pale, with deep, dark circles under her eyes and trembling hands. You need to cancel the board meeting, she said, without preamble. What? Carla, what are you talking about? We already have everything planned. Raphael is more cunning than we thought. Carla sank onto the sofa. I spent the night investigating. I discovered that he has 2 of the 5 board members literally in his pocket, Edward Campbell and Mark Newman. We already knew they were loyal to Raphael, Beatrice replied, sitting opposite her. It's not just loyalty. Carla opened her folder and pulled out some printed sheets. They are involved in parallel businesses with Raphael. Schemes to divert contracts from Vasconcelos to shell companies they jointly control. Beatrice took the documents and quickly examined them. They were company registrations, contracts, and bank transactions that proved the scheme. Why didn't you show me this before? Because I only just found out. One of the accountants, Roger, came to me last night. He was concerned about some inconsistencies he found. When he heard about the board meeting, he decided to show me what he had discovered. Beatrice ran her hands over her face, trying to process the new information. This changes everything. With this evidence, I can demand their removal from the board and... It's not that simple, Carla interrupted. Roger told me that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are more involved, possibly even in regulatory bodies. If you reveal yourself tomorrow and lose the board vote, you'll be discredited as an unstable heiress trying to cause trouble. Raphael will use his influence to legally remove you from management. He can't do that. I'm the majority shareholder. Yes, but you signed a power of attorney giving him full powers before you went to London, remember? He can claim you are trying to break a prior agreement without justification, especially if the board votes against you. Beatrice got up and walked to the window. The city was still asleep, with only a few lights dotting the darkness. So much was at stake, not just her inheritance or her father's legacy, but the livelihood and dignity of hundreds of families. What do you suggest? Cancel the meeting. Let's pull back, gather more evidence, build a solid case against Raphael and the corrupt board members. It might take a few weeks, maybe months, but it will be safer. Beatrice closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. Retreating would mean allowing Raphael to proceed with his plan, to lay off 30% of the workforce, over 70 families affected. It would mean more humiliations, more suffering. You're right, she finally said, defeated. I'll cancel the meeting. We can't risk losing everything. Carla seemed relieved. I'll call the board office right now and... She was interrupted by Beatrice's cell phone ringing. On the screen, an unknown number. It was 4:37 a.m. Hello? Clara Beatrice Vasconcelos. A young, hesitant voice sounded on the other end. Yes, who is this? This is Leo Miller from IT. Beatrice signaled Carla to be silent. Leo, what's wrong? Why are you calling at this hour? Sorry to bother you so early, but I needed to talk to you before you made any decisions. His voice was urgent. Amy told me about your plan for the board meeting. I know it's risky, especially with the corrupt board members, but you can't give up. How do you know about the board members? I work in IT, remember? I have access to all emails. I saw the messages exchanged between Raphael, Edward, and Mark. I know about their scheme. Beatrice gave Carla a worried look. Leo, I appreciate your concern, but things are more complicated than they seem. A lot is at stake. I know. That's why I'm calling. There was a pause. You have no idea what your presence here, even disguised as Mrs. Hilda, has meant to us. What do you mean? To see the owner of the company, the founder's daughter, suffering the same humiliations as us, cleaning bathrooms, being mistreated. It gave people hope. It showed that someone cares enough to experience firsthand what we're going through. Beatrice felt a lump in her throat. Last night, after I left your apartment, I went to the bar near the company. There were about 20 employees there, all devastated after the meeting. They were talking about Louis, about how he had the courage to stand up to Raphael. One of them said, if only Mr. Anthony's daughter knew what was happening here. Leo's voice choked. If you only knew how much your father was loved, Beatrice. How people speak of him with respect even years later. What Raphael is doing is not just destroying a company, he's killing a legacy of dignity. Beatrice closed her eyes, feeling tears forming. I know, Leo. Believe me, I know. Then don't give up, no matter the risk. People need you. They need to know that Mr. Anthony's spirit still lives in the company, through you. When Beatrice hung up after promising Leo she would think about it, she found Carla looking at her with apprehension. You're not going to cancel, are you? Beatrice took a deep breath. No, Carla, I'm not. My father never backed down from a challenge, especially when it came to defending the people who trusted him. I won't be any different. But the risk, it's enormous, I know. But worse would be to live with the cowardice of not having tried. Beatrice wiped away a stubborn tear. Just promise me one thing. If everything goes wrong, if I lose the company, you'll help these people find new jobs. Carla nodded, emotional. You're just like your father. Stubborn, idealistic, and absurdly brave. I hope that's enough. Beatrice checked her watch. We still have a few hours before the meeting. Let's review our plan. At 9:30 a.m. that morning, the boardroom on the 30th floor of Vasconcelos Developments began to receive its members. It was an imposing room, with a solid wood oval table and floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of New York City. On the walls, photographs of the company's main projects over 4 decades and prominently, a portrait of Anthony Vasconcelos. Beatrice arrived an hour earlier, dressed in her cleaning uniform. As planned, she began to clean the room under the bored gaze of the board secretary, who soon left to fetch coffee. At 9:45 a.m., the 5 board members began to arrive, Edward Campbell and Mark Newman, Raphael's allies, Helen Davies, corporate lawyer who had worked with the company since Anthony's time, George Sanders, representative of minority shareholders, and Robert Alvarez, Anthony's former partner in the early years of the construction company. Along with the board members, 3 important Japanese investors Raphael was trying to attract for a new project also arrived. Their presence was not foreseen in Beatrice's plan, but it could be an advantage, neutral witnesses to what was about to happen. Raphael entered last with his usual arrogant posture. He greeted the investors effusively in heavily accented English, but completely ignored the presence of Mrs. Hilda, who continued to discreetly clean a corner of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, Raphael began, naturally taking control of the meeting. "I thank you all for your presence, especially our distinguished investors from Tanaka Corporation, who honor us with their visit." The Japanese nodded politely. Raphael continued, "I convened this extraordinary meeting because we face an emergency situation. As I detailed in the reports I sent, the company is operating below its ideal capacity and with inflated costs. I need board approval to implement an aggressive restructuring plan." "And what exactly would that plan be?" asked Helen Davies, the lawyer, already suspicious. "We need to reduce our workforce by 30%. This means the termination of approximately 75 employees in the next 30 days. Murmur ran through the room. George Sanders, the minority shareholders' representative, seemed particularly alarmed. 30%? That's too drastic, Raphael. We're talking about 75 families. Business is not done with sentimentality, George, Raphael retorted, impatient. The company is bloated. We need efficiency to survive in the current market. At that moment, the door to the room opened and Carla entered with a serious expression. "Pardon the interruption," she said, "but I need to inform you that the official owner of Vasconcelos Developments is present and would like to participate in this meeting." Raphael frowned, visibly irritated. "What does this mean, Carla? Beatrice is in Europe and has not expressed interest in participating in any meeting." "I'm not in Europe, Raphael," Beatrice said, stopping cleaning and taking off her gloves. "I'm right here." A stunned silence fell over the room as Beatrice walked to the center. She still wore the blue uniform of the cleaning team, but her posture was now completely different, erect, confident, with her chin held high, revealing a striking resemblance to the man in the portrait on the wall. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board, allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Beatrice Vasconcelos, daughter of Anthony Vasconcelos and majority owner of this company." Raphael paled. "This is ridiculous. This woman is obviously unbalanced. She's just a cleaning lady." "No, Raphael," Helen Davies interjected, standing up. "I've known Beatrice since she was a child. It is her." Robert Alvarez, Anthony's former partner, also stood up. "My God, Beatrice. What does this mean?" "It means, Robert, that I needed to see with my own eyes what was happening in the company my father built." Beatrice looked directly at Raphael. "And what I saw was devastating." Raphael tried to regain control of the situation. "This is absurd. We are in the middle of a formal board meeting. We cannot allow this kind of theater." "Theater?" questioned George Sanders, the shareholders' representative. "The owner of the company is here, dressed as a cleaning lady, saying she witnessed something devastating, and you call this theater? I, on the contrary, am very interested in what she has to say." Raphael realized he was losing the support of even neutral board members. He changed tactics. "Beatrice, if you have concerns about the management, we could have discussed this in private. There was no need for this dumb spectacle." "I tried, Raphael. For 2 months before I traveled to London, I tried to warn you about problems in the organizational culture. You said it was frivolity, remember? That I didn't understand real business." She turned to the board. "For the past 3 weeks, I have worked disguised as a cleaning lady in our own company. I cleaned bathrooms, offices, meeting rooms. I was humiliated, ignored, treated as invisible, just as dozens of our employees are treated daily under Mr. Mendoza's management." Edward Campbell, one of Raphael's allied board members, intervened. "These are just personal impressions, Beatrice. Raphael had to take tough measures to ensure the company's competitiveness in difficult times." "Personal impressions?" Beatrice repeated. "I have concrete proof of what I'm saying." She signaled to Carla, who distributed folders to each board member. "What you have in your hands is a complete dossier. In the first section, financial reports show a 23% drop in revenue since Raphael took over, not because of the market, which grew 7% in the same period, but due to the loss of 3 key clients representing almost 30% of our portfolio." The board members began to leaf through the documents, while Raphael grew increasingly pale. The second section shows operational costs inflated by 40%, without technical justification. And the third section, gentlemen, is the most worrying. Raphael's personal expenses being illegally paid with company funds, dinners at luxury restaurants, international trips without proven commercial purpose. And, she paused dramatically, their Porsche Cayenne registered as an operational vehicle for his exclusive use. Raphael slammed his hand on the table, furious. This is an invasion of privacy. You had no right to access these documents. These are documents from my company, Raphael. I have every right. Beatrice remained calm. But there's more. In the fourth section, you will find emails and contracts proving a scheme between Raphael, Edward Campbell, and Mark Newman to divert contracts from Vasconcelos to shell companies controlled by them. The two mentioned board members stood up, protesting vehemently, but the damage was already done. The other board members looked at them with suspicion, while the Japanese investors whispered among themselves, visibly disturbed. "This is slander," shouted Edward. "We will sue her." "Feel free," Beatrice replied calmly. "All documents have already been sent to the Public Prosecutor's Office and the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. I merely fulfilled my duty as a responsible manager." Raphael, realizing the situation was irreversible, tried one last resort. "I demand a board vote. Now, on my continued tenure as CEO." Helen Davies, the lawyer, took the floor. "I agree we need to vote. I propose the immediate removal of Rafael Mendoza from the position of CEO of Vasconcelos Developments, as well as the preventive suspension of board members Edward Campbell and Mark Newman until the accusations are properly investigated." "I second the motion," George Sanders said quickly. "Let's vote," declared Robert Alvarez, the oldest of the board members. "Who is in favor of Rafael Mendoza's removal?" One by one, the board members raised their hands. Helen, George, Robert, and, to everyone's surprise, also Edward and Mark, in a desperate attempt to save their own skins by distancing themselves from Raphael. 5 votes to 0. "Approved unanimously," Robert announced. "Rafael Mendoza is officially removed from the position of CEO of Vasconcelos Developments, effective immediately." Raphael looked around, incredulous. Even his allies had abandoned him. He turned to Beatrice, hatred in his eyes. "You have no idea what you've just done. This company will sink without me." "On the contrary, Raphael," she replied serenely. "This company will finally return to what my father dreamed, a place where not only buildings are built, but dignity." Raphael grabbed his folder and slammed the door as he left. Beatrice took a deep breath, feeling the weight of that historic moment. She looked at her father's portrait on the wall and, for a brief instant, imagined seeing a smile of approval on his face. Robert Alvarez approached her, and to Beatrice's surprise, hugged her emotionally. "Your father would be proud, my dear. Very proud." Beatrice smiled, but knew the battle was just beginning. Now she needed to regain the trust of the employees and rebuild the company on the values her father always championed. "Carla," she called, "please summon all employees to the auditorium in 1 hour. I have an important announcement to make." As the board members and investors left the room, animatedly commenting on what they had witnessed, Beatrice remained alone for a moment before Anthony Vasconcelos's portrait. She still wore the blue uniform of the cleaning team, a symbol of the path she had chosen to honor her father's legacy. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. "First stage complete. Now let's rebuild." 1 hour later, the Vasconcelos auditorium was completely packed. The buzz was intense. News of what had happened in the boardroom had spread like wildfire. Some employees said Raphael had been fired, others that he had resigned. No one knew exactly why, but everyone felt something monumental was happening. Carla went up to the stage and adjusted the microphone. Silence was immediate. "Good morning, everyone. I appreciate each of your presences. Today is a historic day for Vasconcelos Developments. I would like to introduce you to the true owner of this company, who will personally take over management from now on." A murmur of expectation ran through the auditorium. Many employees, especially the newer ones, had never seen Beatrice in person. To everyone's astonishment, it was Mrs. Hilda who went up to the stage. She still wore the blue uniform of the cleaning team. She positioned herself before the microphone and looked at the hundreds of confused faces in front of her. "Good morning. Many of you know me as Mrs. Hilda, the cleaning lady who started working here 3 weeks ago. Others may not know me at all." She paused. "My real name is Beatrice Vasconcelos. I am Anthony Vasconcelos' daughter and the majority owner of this company. A stunned silence fell over the auditorium, followed by a growing murmur of surprise and disbelief. I know this is a shock to you. To explain why I made this drastic decision, I need to tell a story. The story of how a company founded on respect and dignity was almost destroyed by one man's greed and arrogance. For almost 20 minutes, Beatrice narrated everything she had witnessed during her 3 weeks as a cleaning lady. The public humiliations, the disrespectful treatment, the abuses of power. She spoke about how Raphael had alienated long-standing clients, lost valuable talent, and created a toxic environment of fear and insecurity. When my father founded this company, he had a motto: "We build not just buildings, but relationships of trust." Rafael Mendoza completely forgot that. To him, you were just numbers on a spreadsheet, disposable and replaceable. Beatrice looked around, visually connecting with several people in the audience. I saw many of you crying in secret. I saw the fear in the eyes of those who desperately needed their jobs to support their families. I saw dignity crushed daily, and today that ends. She took a deep breath before continuing. Rafael Mendoza has been officially removed by the administrative board unanimously. He is no longer part of Vasconcelos Developments. A wave of applause and exclamations of relief swept through the auditorium. Some people even stood up, cheering. Beatrice raised her hands, asking for silence. There's more. The bonuses and profit sharing that were unjustly suspended will be reinstated retroactively. The work-from-home policy and flexible hours are also back, effective immediately. Another round of applause, even more enthusiastic. And finally, I have one last announcement. Or rather, an invitation. Beatrice gestured towards the side door of the auditorium. I would like to invite back to our team a man who embodies the courage, integrity, and values my father always championed. Louis Anderson, the project manager who had confronted Raphael and been fired, entered the auditorium. He was visibly moved. The audience erupted in a standing ovation, with whistles and shouts of approval. Louis, surprised by the reception, waved shyly as he walked to the stage. Beatrice hugged him tightly in front of everyone. Welcome back, Louis, not just as a project manager, but as our new director of operations. Louis, with tears in his eyes, approached the microphone. I don't know what to say. Yesterday I was at home, trying to explain to my wife how we would pay for her treatment without my salary. Today I am here being received like this. His voice choked. Thank you, Beatrice, for rescuing the soul of this company, and thank you all for your support. I promise to honor that trust every day. When the applause finally subsided, Beatrice took the floor again. We have a lot of work ahead of us. The company is in a delicate situation, with lost clients and delayed projects. But together, we will return to the principles that made Vasconcelos Development synonymous with excellence and integrity. She gave a genuine smile for the first time that morning. Now I suggest everyone go home. Take today to rest, process all this, and come back tomorrow with renewed energy. Starting tomorrow, we begin the reconstruction. The auditorium slowly emptied, with groups of employees talking animatedly. Many approached Beatrice to thank her, some with tears in their eyes. A young woman from the design team, whom Beatrice recognized as one of those she had seen crying in the bathroom weeks before, hugged her emotionally. I will never forget what you did. Putting yourself in our shoes, feeling what we felt, that changes everything. When the auditorium finally became empty, only Beatrice, Carla, Louis, and Leo, the IT intern who had helped uncover Raphael's schemes, remained. And now? Carla asked, exhausted but visibly satisfied. Now comes the hard part, Beatrice replied. We'll need to win back clients, reorganize projects, restore market confidence. It won't be easy or quick. But it will be possible, Louis affirmed. Believe me, many clients left not because of prices or deadlines, but because they couldn't stand Raphael's arrogant treatment. When they hear about the change in management, many will return. Leo, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. There's another important thing. The internal atmosphere. Trust has been broken. People are traumatized. It will take time to heal these wounds. You're right, Leo, and that's why I need you. Beatrice looked at the three of them. You will be my eyes and ears during this transition. I want to know everything, what's working, what's not, how people are really feeling. Everyone nodded, committed to the mission. "And you, Mrs. Beatrice," Lewis asked, "will you finally take your place on the 30th floor?" Beatrice looked at the blue uniform she still wore. "Yes, but I won't forget what I learned in these 3 weeks. From time to time, Mrs. Hilda will still appear to clean some bathrooms and hear what people really think." The following week, Vasconcelos Developments began its transformation. Beatrice met individually with each department, listening to concerns, gathering ideas, and reaffirming her commitment to transparent and humane management. One of her first actions was to reinstate the open-door policy her father had implemented decades earlier. Any employee, regardless of position or tenure, could request a direct conversation with her. In her first week as official CEO, Beatrice received over 50 employees in her office. She heard stories of moral harassment, ignored ideas, wasted talents. But she also heard valuable suggestions, innovative proposals, and above all, a genuine desire to make the company once again a place where people felt proud to work. 2 weeks after Raphael's dismissal, an unexpected event surprised Beatrice. Deborah Adams, the financial manager she had found crying in the bathroom, requested an urgent meeting. "We found something disturbing," Deborah said, placing a folder on Beatrice's desk. Raphael maintained parallel accounting. The diversions were even greater than we imagined. Beatrice examined the documents with growing concern. "This is much more serious than we thought. We need to inform the authorities." "I've already prepared a complete dossier," Deborah replied. "But first I need to tell you something else. I received an offer to be CFO of Horizon Builders. The salary is 40% higher than mine here." Beatrice felt a pang in her chest. Losing Deborah at that moment would be a severe blow. "I understand. That's quite an opportunity. When do you leave?" "That's the point," Deborah smiled. "I declined. After what I saw you do, your courage and integrity, money isn't everything. I want to be part of this reconstruction." Beatrice felt her eyes well up. "Thank you for your trust, Deborah. I won't disappoint you." In the following month, the first positive results began to appear. 2 of the key clients lost during Raphael's management returned, impressed by the company's new approach. One of them, the owner of Northwood Hotel Group, explained his decision in a meeting with Beatrice. "Your father was my first business partner 30 years ago. He built my first hotel when no one believed in the potential of tourism in the South. I left Vasconcelos heartbroken when Raphael treated me like a number. Coming back is like reuniting with an old friend." Internally, the transformation was even more visible. Employee turnover, which had reached alarming levels under Raphael's management, dropped drastically. Absenteeism decreased, and most importantly, people started smiling in the hallways again. At the end of the 3rd month after the internal revolution, Beatrice called a new general meeting. Unlike the first, the atmosphere now was one of positive expectation. "When we gathered here 3 months ago," she began, "we were embarking on a journey of reconstruction. Today I can share the first results of that collective effort." She presented the numbers. Revenue up 18% compared to the same period last year. 2 important clients recovered. Employee turnover reduced by 65%. And most surprisingly, an organizational climate survey showing 87% satisfaction, the highest index in the company's history. "These results are the work of each and every one of you," Beatrice emphasized. "You believed it was possible to change, that it was possible to rebuild. And you are proving it every day." At the end of the meeting, Leo approached her with an envelope. "What's this?" Beatrice asked. "A letter. It arrived yesterday, addressed to you. The sender is Rafael Mendoza." Beatrice felt a chill. She opened the envelope cautiously and read the surprisingly brief letter. "Beatrice, I never imagined writing this letter, but some things need to be said. What you did was courageous and I reluctantly admit necessary. I lost my way, lost perspective on what truly matters in business and in life. I am in therapy. The legal process is ongoing, and I will face the consequences of my actions. But I want you to know that you did me a favor by stopping me. I was becoming someone I no longer recognized. Your father would be proud of what you did. I, ironically, am too. Rafael Mendoza." Beatrice reread the letter several times, trying to process those unexpected words. She felt no anger towards Rafael, only sadness for what could have been and wasn't. "Everything all right?" Leo asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Everything's great, she replied, putting the letter away. Just another confirmation that we are on the right path. That afternoon, as she walked through the construction site of Vasconcelos's newest venture, a sustainable, affordable housing complex on the outskirts of New York City, Beatrice was approached by Leo again. "I need to tell you something," he said, looking nervous. "I received an offer from TechBuild. They want to hire me as a digital security manager. The salary is almost 30% higher than what I earn here." Beatrice felt a déjà vu from her conversation with Deborah. "And what did you decide?" Leo smiled. "I already declined. I explained that some things are priceless. Respect is one of them. You know, Leo, my father used to say that companies are not made of concrete and steel, but of trust and commitment. You just proved that. It was your example that inspired my decision. You could have sold the company, lived comfortably with the money, but you chose to fight for something greater." Beatrice watched the workers harmoniously on the construction site, men and women of various ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds, united by the purpose of building not just a building, but a better future for families they would never personally know. "Leo, do you have any ideas to further improve the company's environment?" she asked, suddenly inspired. The young man thought for a moment. "I have several, actually. For example, we could create an innovation committee with representatives from all departments, including operational roles. Often the best ideas come from those on the front lines." "Excellent idea. I want you to lead that committee. Start structuring it next week." Leo's eyes shone with the unexpected responsibility. "Seriously? But I'm just a talented young man who had courage when many were silent," Beatrice completed. "Exactly the kind of leadership we need." Upon returning to the office, Beatrice paused before the building's main entrance. A space on the wall, previously occupied by an abstract painting chosen by Raphael, was now empty. "Carla," she called, finding her friend in the hallway. "I need you to order something for me. A plaque to put at the entrance." "What kind of plaque?" "A brushed metal plaque with the following inscription: 'Here every role has dignity. Respect has no rank.'" Carla smiled, understanding the message. "It will be perfect there. Your father would approve." "Yes," Beatrice agreed, looking at the blue uniform she carefully kept in her closet, a daily reminder that no one is invisible. "He certainly would approve." 6 months after the revolution at Vasconcelos Developments, the transformation was evident to anyone who entered the imposing building on Fifth Avenue. From the reception, where a brushed metal plaque now displayed the phrase, "Here every role has dignity. Respect has no rank," to the 30th floor, where the CEO's office literally had open doors, everything reflected a new philosophy. It was a Friday morning, and Beatrice was finishing preparations for a special event. Vasconcelos was celebrating its 40th anniversary that day, and the celebration had been carefully planned to reflect the company's renewed values. "Nervous?" Carla asked, entering the office with a folder of documents. "A little," Beatrice admitted. "It's the first big company celebration since I officially took over. I want it to be perfect. It will be. The auditorium is ready. Guests have started to arrive, and the employees are thrilled, though the journalists are also in position." The press had shown great interest in Vasconcelos's turnaround. One of the country's largest business magazines had published, the previous month, a cover story titled "The Cleaning Lady CEO: How Beatrice Vasconcelos Revolutionized Her Father's Company from Within." The repercussion had been enormous, attracting attention even from international media. "The quarterly numbers have arrived," Carla continued, handing the folder to Beatrice. "I think you'll like what you see." Beatrice examined the reports with a growing smile. Revenue had increased by 32% compared to the same period last year. The company had not only recovered clients lost during Raphael's management, but had also secured important new contracts, including a sustainable, affordable housing project in partnership with the state government, something her father had always dreamed of achieving. "Amazing what 6 months of humanized management can do, isn't it?" Beatrice commented, closing the folder. "Actually, it's amazing what a leader with vision and courage can do," Carla corrected. "You turned a crisis into an opportunity." Beatrice's phone rang. It was Amy Gallagher, the engineer who had confronted Raphael at the fateful meeting. and now held the position of Director of Sustainability. "Beatrice, we have a situation downstairs. I think you'll want to come see this personally." "Any problem?" Beatrice asked, concerned. "Not exactly a problem, just come see." Intrigued, Beatrice went down to the ground floor accompanied by Carla. Upon reaching the main lobby, she found a scene she would never have imagined. About 50 employees lined up in 2 rows, forming a human corridor. Among them, new and familiar faces, from the most experienced laborers to recently hired interns. "What's happening?" she asked, confused. Louis Anderson, now Director of Operations, stepped forward with an enigmatic smile, a little surprised before the official celebration. At Louis's signal, the employees began to clap rhythmically. From the end of the human corridor, Leo emerged carrying a carved wooden box. "On behalf of all employees of Vasconcelos Developments," he announced loudly, "we would like to offer a special gift to our CEO, in recognition not only of the exceptional results of these 6 months, but mainly for the example of humility and courage." Leo opened the box. Inside, carefully folded, was a blue uniform identical to the one Beatrice had worn during her disguise as a cleaning lady, but with a difference, embroidered above the pocket. In gold thread was the name Beatrice Vasconcelos, and below, the words "Foundations of Home." "We know you keep the original uniform as a keepsake," Leo explained, "but we wanted you to have one you could wear with pride, one that symbolized that the foundations of this company, respect, dignity, and humanity, start with you." Beatrice held the uniform with trembling hands, deeply moved. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Deborah Adams replied, who was among the employees. "Your actions have already said it all." That spontaneous moment, far more significant than any official ceremony, perfectly represented the transformation the company had undergone. It wasn't just an improvement in numbers or processes, but a revolution in culture and human relations. 2 hours later, in the company's spacious auditorium, the official 40th anniversary celebration of Vasconcelos Developments was in full swing. Over 500 people filled the space: employees, partners, clients, authorities, and journalists. On stage, a large screen displayed historical photos of the company's trajectory. From the small rented room, where Anthony Vasconcelos started the business, to the imposing current projects. Beatrice went up to the stage for her speech, wearing an elegant blazer over a white blouse. To everyone's surprise and admiration, she also wore the new blue uniform she had received as a gift, with the golden embroidery visible on the pocket. "Good morning, everyone," she began, looking at the audience with a genuine smile. "Today we celebrate not only 40 years of Vasconcelos Development's history, but also the rebirth of an idea, of a dream that my father, Anthony Vasconcelos, had 4 decades ago." She paused, observing the attentive faces in front of her. "Some of you may wonder why I'm wearing this uniform on such a formal occasion. The answer is simple. For me, it represents the most important foundation of this company, the understanding that every person, regardless of their role or position, deserves to be seen, heard, and valued." Beatrice walked slowly across the stage, moving closer to the audience. 6 months ago, I wore a uniform like this to understand what was really happening in the company my father built with so much love and dedication. What I discovered was painful: a toxic environment where fear had replaced respect, where numbers were more important than people. Her voice gained intensity. "But I also discovered something wonderful: the resilience and commitment of hundreds of professionals who, even under adverse circumstances, kept alive the flame of the values my father planted. People like Louis Anderson, who risked his livelihood to defend what was right, like Deborah Adams, who endured daily humiliations thinking of her children, like Amy Gallagher, who had the courage to question unjust orders, and like Leo Miller, a young intern who proved that integrity has no age or position." Beatrice pointed to the screen, where a photo of her father at the inauguration of Vasconcelos's first major project now appeared. "My father used to say that buildings collapse when their foundations are neglected. The same goes for companies. When we stray from fundamental values, respect, integrity, commitment, we begin to crumble from within, even if the facade still looks solid." She touched the golden embroidery on her uniform. "Foundations of Home, that's what's written here, and that's what all of you are. Every employee, every partner, every client is part of the foundation that supports this company. And the role of true leadership is not to be above, but to sustain and strengthen those foundations. Beatrice picked up an envelope from the lectern. Therefore, I am pleased to announce today 2 new developments that reflect this commitment. First, starting next month, all Vasconcelos employees, without exception, will participate in the company's profits. Not just executives or managers, but every person who contributes daily to our success. Enthusiastic applause echoed through the auditorium. Second new development, we are launching the Building Together program, which will offer employees at all levels the opportunity to acquire their own home through a company-subsidized financing system, because those who help build homes for others deserve to have their own. The ovation was even more intense. Beatrice saw tears in the eyes of many employees, especially those from the operational team, for whom the dream of home ownership often seemed unattainable. To conclude, she continued when silence returned, I want to share a lesson I learned in these months. True leadership is not about power over others, but about the power to transform lives for the better. It is not about titles or privileges, but about the ability to serve and inspire. Beatrice looked directly at her father's image on the screen. Dad, I know you are watching us from somewhere. I want you to know that your dream lives on. The seed you planted continues to grow and bear fruit. And I promise that as long as I am here, no one will be invisible. No one will be belittled. No one will have their dignity harmed. Turning to the audience, she concluded, the uniform I wear today is not a disguise as it was 6 months ago. It is a symbol of commitment, a daily reminder that to truly lead, we must be willing to serve, that to see the whole, we must value each part, and that to build a solid future, we must honor the foundations that brought us here. The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Beatrice, emotional, received the applause with humility. As she descended from the stage, she was surrounded by people wanting to greet her, thank her, share stories. In the crowd, she noticed an elderly woman patiently waiting to speak with her. Mrs. Beatrice? The woman called when she finally managed to get close. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Martha, the cleaning team supervisor. Of course I remember, Mrs. Martha, Beatrice replied, smiling. You taught me a lot in those days. I just wanted to say your father would be very proud. He always treated us with respect, you know. He knew each of our names. When he fell ill, he sent flowers to my daughter who had just given birth. A man like that is hard to find anymore. Beatrice felt her eyes moisten. Yes, you do, Mrs. Martha. They are everywhere in this company. In every person who chooses kindness over indifference, respect over arrogance, humanity over profit at any cost. The celebration continued until late afternoon. In the evening, when most of the guests had left, Beatrice went up to the building's rooftop terrace. From there, she contemplated the city gradually lighting up. Marked by buildings her company had constructed over 4 decades, Leo found her there, alone with her thoughts. Seeing the empire you built? He joked. Beatrice smiled. Actually, I was thinking about something my father once told me. He pointed to the horizon full of buildings and said, See all those buildings, daughter. One day they will deteriorate, they might even fall. But what we build in people's hearts, that remains forever. Leo nodded, understanding the depth of those words. Your father was a wise man. Yes, he was. Beatrice watched the city lights for another moment. And now I completely understand what he meant. It's not about the buildings we construct, but about the lives we transform in the process. They stood in silence for some time, contemplating the New York City skyline. The starry sky above and the illuminated city below created a magical contrast. You know, Beatrice finally said, when I decided to disguise myself as a cleaning lady, I thought I was on a mission to save my father's company. I never imagined that in the process I would discover the true meaning of leadership. And what is it? Leo asked. Beatrice touched the blue uniform she still wore over her formal clothes. It's having the courage to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to see the world through other eyes, to understand that true strength is not in subjugating, but in elevating. As they descended from the terrace, Beatrice paused briefly before her father's portrait on the hallway wall. In the frame, discreetly, she had placed something few would notice, Louis Anderson's badge, the one he had thrown on the floor in an act of resistance, and which now symbolized the regaining of dignity. "Mission accomplished, Dad," she whispered. "Mission accomplished." That night, upon arriving home, Beatrice opened her closet and looked at the original blue uniform, the one she had worn during her disguise, carefully stored on a special hanger. Beside it, she placed the new one with the golden embroidery that she had received that day. 2 uniforms, one same lesson: no one is invisible. No one is disposable. Every person, regardless of their role or position, carries an inalienable dignity that deserves to be recognized and respected. The next morning, the newspapers featured a photo of Beatrice speaking in her blue uniform. The headline read, "The CEO who turned a crisis into a revolution." But for her, the true revolution was in the smiles she now saw in the company's hallways, in the restored trust, in the dignity regained. And on the plaque that now adorned the entrance of Vasconcelos Developments, "Here every role has dignity. Respect has no rank." A lesson that began with a disguise, but which was now etched not only in metal, but in the fundamental values of a reborn company. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Beatrice Vasconcelos' story has touched your hearts. To follow other inspiring narratives like this one, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories about transformation, courage, and dignity. Find it here by clicking on the left. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the transformative power of authentic leadership. Share in the comments. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a similar situation? How did dignity and respect transform your work environment? Your experiences can inspire other listeners and enrich our community. Thank you for embarking on this journey with us. Until the next story.